Welcome to Aspen Leading Edge Podcast. I'm Patty Roberts from St. Mary's University School of Law. And today I have a very special pair of guests, Dean Joshua Fershee, who is the 11th Dean of Creighton University School of Law, a position he started in July 1st, 2019. But he's joined by his wife, Kendra Fershee, who is also a legal educator in her own right, and they are a dynamic duo leading the Creighton University School of Law. So we have this pair of excellent thought leaders to talk with today and find out a little bit more about what it's like to run a law school with your spouse. So welcome, Josh and Kendra.
Thank you.
Very happy to have you here. And let's just start with when you first came to Creighton. What drew you to Creighton? And you've been there for 5 years. What have you really enjoyed about being at the School of Law?
Well, it was an opportunity that came about while we were at West Virginia University, and one of those dean outreaches that I got a couple of emails asking me to apply. And so we did. And I think, though that followed an interesting path, and maybe we should let Kendra talk about what she did that kind of led us here.
Well, when Josh said we applied, we can put that into context. So I ran for Congress in 2018 in what was then the 1st District of West Virginia. And actually, obviously, that took a long time and a lot of effort. And the sort of shortened version of the story is that over the course of the 18 months that I was running, Josh really took the lead on everything related to our lives that wasn't directly campaign related. So, and some campaign related work too. But we were both serving as associate deans at the College of Law, West Virginia University College of Law at the time. We have 2 kids, household responsibilities, and he did it all, essentially alone for that very long period of time. So I am sure most listeners can glean, I did not win because we're now in Omaha. But when the morning after the general election, I turned to Josh and I said, "It's your turn." I was so grateful for the opportunity to take that on. And he wanted to be a dean. And when I decided to run, with very much his encouragement and support, it meant that he really had to give that up, theoretically, if I'd been successful. When it was clear that that opportunity was over, he decided to throw his hat in the ring and for this position. And I remember thinking, well, this will be great practice. We both thought that, right? Like he'll apply and maybe he'll get an initial interview. And then he was in Omaha for the callback interview. And I remember stopping dead in my tracks literally in the middle of a track while I was running and realizing he's going to get this job. It just hit me. He's going to get this job. I feel it. And I better start Googling Omaha. And so here we are. And it's been a really, really serendipitous and happy thing to come about the way that it did.
It has. And I think, going through that process, I came out and then Kendra came out and the faculty had to meet her and want her to be part of the faculty. We were tenured full faculty members and that was what we intended to keep doing. We were happy where we were and brought our kids out and had a really good opportunity to get to know the community a little bit. And our son went to the high school and he was not really keen on moving as
teenagers everywhere or not.
Yes. Somebody who's about to be a freshman in high school. He came and visited one of the high schools and was just like, this is great. And so that made life a lot easier too. It's a huge risk and a huge challenge for everybody involved, our family, but also for our Creighton community and others when you have a transition like that. And we've really enjoyed the community, the law school community, the university community, and the Omaha community.
Well, I'm so glad that you shared the story, which I did not know, about your congressional run and how each of you has so significantly supported the other at various times in your professional journeys. And I think that's really great for our listeners to hear because it's tough to have 2 professionals raising children and being successful, but then in the same field, what a difficult experience that could be, but you have made it work, even not just in higher education, but law specifically. So when you got to Creighton and Kendra realized, oh, this is going to happen, and everybody enjoyed Omaha when you visited, how did you feel about moving from a public school to a Jesuit institution?
I was raised Catholic, and so I knew of the Jesuits, and my family, my grandmother thought very highly of a Jesuit education, even though I didn't have one. So there was some familiarity and comfort level with that, but a little trepidatious. I mean, coming from we'd worked at big public schools. We went to a private law school, but it was not, at Tulane, that was not religious. And so we really knew public institutions. And so it was something that was a challenge, but we felt good about it and talking to people and asking questions about what the philosophy and what, learning about the mission and how we do things. And I think we had a really good experience. And then Kendra, I came and didn't have that experience in the classroom, right? I had it with the alumni, I had it with our faculty and with our staff. And I think Kendra had the experience with the students that I think she could talk a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I just found almost immediately that it felt different in a really positive way. Not to say that we didn't have fruitful discussions in the public institutions, but I feel like students who are drawn to Jesuit education are probably thinking more in terms of sort of the philosophical underpinnings and the values and ethics of the law. What's the purpose of what we're doing here, and why do we make the laws that we do and enforce them the way that we do, or fail to enforce them if that's the reality. And those conversations were just sort of bubbling right under the surface and were really easy to call into the forefront in class, which I really appreciate. And it makes for a robust education. We're not just learning the doctrine, we're talking about policy and why we're here and why do we want to be lawyers is mostly answered by our students with a service-minded response, which I think is really, really fun to be a part of as a teacher.
I have found that here at St. Mary's as well. I think that whether or not a student is Catholic, they are drawn to this service-mindedness and the mission and values that a Catholic institution engages in, and it enriches all our discussions. And it is more about the vocation rather than just the profession. Both are really important. So I'm glad you found that at Creighton as well. What do you enjoy about Omaha? Probably not many of our listeners know about Omaha.
Well, it's somewhere in middle America, as the counting crows tell us. Yeah, I mean, I think there were a few things that surprised me about Omaha. The community here is extremely philanthropic. That might not be as much of a surprise because Berkshire Hathaway and Warren Buffett is here, but there are a lot of, this is Warren Buffett's has been in Omaha his whole life, other than when he lived in DC, when his dad was a congressional member, House of Representatives member, and a little bit in New York, I think, before he came back. So the community is very committed to supporting Omaha. And one of the reasons why we love our kids' public school is because there's a huge foundation that has committed a lot of resources to the school, and it's kind of the perfect inner city school. It's got it's got diversity and opportunity and just support from the community that we've really appreciated. It's a city that gets a lot of the things that a big city has, but we don't have to deal with a lot of the big city downsides. So the traffic isn't too bad, but we get lots of live music coming through, and so you've got a nice balance with the size, I think.
Yeah, and it was bigger than I appreciated. The metro area is about 1 million people. And so you come in, it's a real city. And certainly we practiced law in New York and DC and then lived in smaller college towns. And so Omaha has a really nice balance there. And our kids' high school is big, beautiful buildings, usually one of the prettiest public high schools in the country.
Yeah, it changes off with Little Rock Central, from what I understand, in terms of the most beautiful public school in the country.
Yeah, we have some minor league baseball, but Creighton basketball is kind of the pro sports of the area. We're a Big East member and have had some success. I have a big arena. We have almost 18,000 people for every sold-out basketball game, and I just didn't anticipate the resources that we would have and the opportunity, and Broadway shows come through, and so you get an awful lot for a very manageable city and a reasonable cost of living. So it's been a nice balance for us.
That sounds terrific. What's the size of Creighton University and then also the School of Law?
So the university is about 8,900 students, and half of that are graduate and professional students. So we are rare, especially for our size. We have physical therapy, occupational therapy, pharmacy, dental, nursing, medical schools, and law school, in addition to our undergraduate programs. So it's about evenly split. The law school, we have been right around 387 students the last couple of years, oddly enough. Which is a little bigger than we'd been. We'd gotten down to around the 300 range in 2017, 2018, and you go back before that, much, much larger, as big as 220, 230 per class.
Okay. That does
So it's substantially.
He's a lawyer, math.
math is he's the mathematician in the family. I have to. Yeah.
Is your both? I am just not linear all the time. I know where I'm going, but you may not.
I can confirm.
So we're looking around 135, 140 students a class the last several years, and I think that's the right spot for us.
Great size.
And one of the things I should mention about Omaha that I didn't appreciate, having taught in college towns, and this is true of college towns everywhere. I grew up in East Lansing, Michigan. When you go to a college town, you usually can't stay there because that's not where the jobs are. In Michigan, you go to Detroit or Grand Rapids. In Indiana, you go to Indianapolis, not Bloomington. In Iowa City, you go to Chicago or Omaha. And here we have access for our students to internships and opportunities with the public defenders and the prosecutor's office and Union Pacific and, these companies that I really didn't appreciate in a way, what that could look like for so many students. And so that's been a really nice too. And Omaha is a very stable and robust economy. We have, I think, the lowest unemployment rate in the country still. And so that's employers complain about it and workers don't.
So you arrived 5 years ago and you were dean. Josh, you still are dean. What has been the pathway of your many positions, Kendra, since you arrived?
Yep. So when we came, I was hired as a full faculty member with tenure, which is what I had before, which was great. So I was teaching, doing the traditional sort of the trifecta, service, teaching, and scholarship. And I really enjoyed the service side of that and at WVU, but it didn't seem like it was necessarily going to work for me to be in that position here. At least initially, we felt like it perhaps could give people a sense of sort of conglomeration of Fershee power. And we actually...
It's the Fershee empire, right?
Right, exactly. And so we were sensitive to that when we came here. We talked to the provost and asked if she would be my direct, well, at the time it was someone else, but now Mardell Wilson is our provost. And we asked if she would be my supervisor so that there's a decision that Josh needs to make having to do with salary or, employment decisions, that he doesn't have to do that with respect to my role. And that worked really well. Also, I think, so we made sure the faculty knew that was the arrangement. And then we have always had a policy that we are our individual selves when we're at work. We enjoy working as a team, and I think we do that well. But we disagree sometimes in faculty meetings, that there are times when maybe we see things differently, and we're not shy about that. I mean, we're respectful like we would be with any faculty member, obviously, or dean to faculty member. But I think that maybe gave the faculty some comfort that we're not in lockstep, that I'm my own person and vice versa. So when this opportunity to fill in, at least for an interim period as associate dean, came along, first, I will admit I resisted, because while I like the job, the other thing we like to do together is renovate houses. And our house is currently, once again, under construction. And I usually manage the project. So I was knee deep in that. But when that kind of slowed down, Josh convinced me that this might be something that we could try as an interim. And I think it's actually gone well. I can't speak for everyone. There might be people who disagree with that, but I just try to put my head down and do the work. And I think that people see that. So in terms of what does this mean for the next step, I don't know, other than I'm going back to the faculty, sort of regular faculty on July 1, and delighted about it. It's been a long 6 months because there have been lots of roles that I've had to take on in that time period that have been pretty demanding, but I like it and I'm glad to have had the chance to do it. But I'm also excited about getting back onto the regular faculty path.
Well, and Kendra's teaching load since we've been here has been pretty substantial as well. She's taken on new course preps and she's been willing to take on whatever we need. And she taught 2 courses during the school year, and actually she's teaching now in our accelerated JD program that starts in May. So her torch class meets 6 times a week in addition to her administrative duties. So
yeah, I'm ready for a break. Yeah. But I will say that being this, for anybody who wonders, the hardest part about this job was when I had to serve for about 6 weeks as the interim registrar. That nearly took me out. That is everyone should thank immediately their registrar for everything they do, because it is a really, really technical, difficult job that I'm very grateful is not my normal job.
And thankless, right? Because nobody ever says, wow, thank you, registration went so perfectly.
Exactly, because has it ever, first of all?
Exactly.
No. But secondly, even if it did, it's just supposed to, right? It's supposed to be perfect. So,
right. But so now you have a new registrar coming in, right?
yeah, she's already here. And then we also have the new associate dean for academic affairs is starting on July 1st.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the course load that Kendra has had, Josh, because I remember talking to you at AALS. There was some emergency filling or two or new prep, and you kept saying, and Kendra took that on, and Kendra took that on. You have such a great utility player there that you can turn.
That's what I say. I'm a good bench player. My area is family law, but I don't get to teach it very often, which is okay. I think my area now has become 1Ls because I teach a lot of first-year courses, and I love it. I teach crim, I teach torts, I'm teaching this coming fall because of colleagues on sabbatical, civil procedure, and then I teach PR, which isn't a first-year course, but it's kind of like that. It's core, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. You probably don't need to hire too many other faculty with her on the bench.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, that's exciting, and I'm excited for you that you're going back to the faculty. Josh, why don't you tell me a little bit about the expansion of the clinics that have happened since you both arrived at Creighton?
Yeah, so when I first got here, we had our Abraham's Legal Clinic, which is a wonderful civil litigation clinic that does a lot of work with domestic violence victims, landlord-tenant work, and family law issues. But we were really only taking 8 students a semester in that role. And so one of the things we'd like to do is to increase clinical opportunities, both for our students and also for our service to the community. Those two being linked, I think, is really important, both for our mission, but also for our profession. And so as we looked at that, was fortunate to work with somebody in the community who helped put together a proposal to start a juvenile justice legal clinic. And we've got some foundation grants of some substance to commit to starting those for 5 years, and we've been able to extend that. And so they take cases that are assigned by the juvenile court, so system-involved youth, have cases that are assigned to the clinic, and then the students take those cases under the supervision of our director. And so that's a great program that increased significantly some opportunity. And then we're shortly thereafter able to start a program, a low-income bankruptcy clinic, that's doing similar work. And actually we found there was a foundation that was interested in the fact that legal aid doesn't actually do bankruptcies. They teach people how to do them pro se, but they actually were turning away 250 people a year because they were too poor. That is, they didn't have anything relatively to lose. And legal aid was proper to identify who had the most to lose, right? You're triaging if you only have so much capacity. But this was clearly a gap. Some of us have access to bankruptcy. We all should have access to bankruptcy. That Fresh Start is supposed to be eligible for everybody. And so that program we started about a year, I guess 18 months ago now. So that program is going well. And we actually had a student win the 8th Circuit Bankruptcy Clinical Service Award coming out of our bankruptcy clinic in its first year, which was very, very exciting. And we are in the process of starting an entrepreneurship clinic. We have a state-based grant for that we hope to have up and running starting in the fall, but really formally in January. So we have some time to ramp up and get to that one, serving the North and South Omaha areas, both of which are areas that have historically been that don't have generational wealth and were often barred from generational wealth through redlining and other practices. And so looking to help create opportunities for people looking to start new businesses and then protecting those businesses for their families and those to come. So I'm really excited about all of those opportunities. The one other thing we added as a program that I don't think anywhere in the country has was another grant-based program called Community Connections, it's a services connector, but because it has such overlap with our juvenile justice legal clinic, we brought that program here with the help of a donor, and they really just work to connect youth with services. So it's very family driven, that we don't tell them what they need to do. Our connectors connect them with resources and help them get to them. So it's great to have, Omaha actually has some wonderful resources in terms of food pantries and after school programs. But if you don't have a car or bus pass or ways to get there, or you don't know about them, or the ability to print out the form to sign up for them, those are things that we can help with. And so that has created an opportunity to help try to keep kids out of the juvenile justice system, which is really part of the program. And when unfortunately they do end up involved in the program, we've been able to refer them to the clinic and sometimes have the judge assign that case to our clinic where we have some institutional and family knowledge about what's happening. So it's been a really interesting and dynamic couple of years for what we've done, but we've gone from 16 annual spots to 48 spots a year for clinical placements and hope to add a few more. So we're really excited about that.
That's a huge increase. As a clinician, I'm very happy to hear that. And the skills that students learn are so amazing. The community connections is interesting because even though it's not providing legal advice per se, there's so much of that kind of resource connection that involves interviewing clients and learning empathy and compassion and all of that. So kudos to you all for doing that and providing that experience, not only for your community, but for your students. So I have heard from the Dean of Creighton School of Law that Omaha is the home of the College World Series. Now, tell me what that means to your law school and your community.
So it's an interesting opportunity for our community. It's one of the things that people tend to know, even if when I go places, it's like Omaha, it's like College World Series. Oh yeah, I remember that's there. I need to come to that sometime. So it always happens in the summer. So we're out of school other than the summer school program. So that, which is probably good because it helps free up hotel rooms and parking spaces and things for that group. But it's been in Omaha for quite a long time. The baseball stadium is the home of Creighton baseball where they play the College World Series. So Creighton hosts the College World Series every year. We've been working, actually, when I got here, the 2020 College World Series was going to host a major league draft. So we were hoping to really highlight some things. And of course, that did not happen in 2020. But we have a sports law program here. Professor David Weber has done a really good job. He's an expert in name, image, and likeness and how that applies to athletes from other countries, so immigration and how that impacts, and overall looking at NIL issues. And so having such a big amateur sports spectacle here every year gives us a real opportunity to talk about what's happening. We did a sports law symposium for our law review this past March, and Val Ackerman, who's the commissioner of the Big East, was our keynote speaker and did panels on NIL and sports gambling. And so being so close to such dynamic athletics, I think really helps. Students are aware of it, especially who come to us in this region. And we've placed a number of students with the NCAA in both internships and post-graduation. And so I think it's helped us really kind of carve out a small space in the sports law world that we hope to expand on.
That is very interesting and must be fun to watch that whole operation descend on Omaha annually. How many people does it usually bring in?
Oh, I'm trying to remember. I cannot think of what the numbers are. They're pretty staggering. I mean, there are businesses in that area that do 85% of their business annually in the 2 weeks of the College World Series.
Wow.
And so it is really something to watch.
Now, are those of you who are in Omaha excited when it comes, or are you like, oh my gosh, I can't wait till these people leave?
Both, I think.
It doesn't have a huge impact, I don't think, on most parts of town. We know it's coming, and you can see it if you go near where the games are played. I mean, it's nice, it's good. We eat in a lot. That would maybe
For those 2 weeks.
I might say something differently if we ate a lot.
It does impact reservations and hotel reservations, certainly. But one of the things, Omaha is well suited. We have the World Series here. We've had the Olympic swimming trials here regularly. Every year we have Berkshire, which is the annual meeting for Berkshire Hathaway, which brings in people from everywhere. And that may be
all over the world.
All over the world. And people run out their homes as Airbnbs. And so the big events with rounds of the men's basketball tournament were here. And so we're built to absorb that. So if you're right in the heart of it, it's a zoo. And by the way, we have a fantastic zoo here in England.
Nice transition.
Yeah.
But it really is not too terrible. We're not overrun everywhere.
Yeah.
That's good. Actually, now that you say that about the Berkshire meeting, I have an alum and good friend from here who just went to that meeting. So now I know she brought him some C's candy for me that was like one of the giveaways. So,
Yep, for sure.
Well, before we conclude, I would love to know what each of you thinks is likely to be the evolution of legal education in the coming decade. We've seen a lot, certainly over the last decade, but what do you see moving forward?
So when I look at legal education, we have seen an awful lot of changes, and we talk about trying to have practice-ready students and how we get people ready for an evolving bar exam, and we have AI obviously added into it. To me, I think the biggest thing we're going to have to do as legal educators and as a profession is adjust to the new reality of who the people are that we're serving. And I say that as somebody who is consistently impressed with our students. They don't work the same way or think the same way as we do, but it doesn't make them not brilliant, and it doesn't make them not hard workers. They're just not seeing the world the way we do. And that evolution, I think, is stronger. That was true when we were in law school for our professors too. But I think that the biggest evolution is going to be figuring out how to continue excellence in the profession and the precision and the commitment to client service that we've always had in new and different ways. But I think that evolution is really going to have to start with understanding that we can't do the same thing and expect different outcomes as people evolve. And so I think that it's going to be changing in some modest ways, but significant and profound ways, how we teach and how we practice so that we can serve a broader profession, protect access to justice, and continue the excellence that we expect of our profession.
Similarly, I think my thoughts are related to that, and that's probably not surprising because Josh and I talk about work and at home, and we talk about home at work and at home. But this is something I've been thinking about in relation to, I did an ethics CLE for the Omaha Bar Association on AI in the profession and how that impacts our ethical responsibilities as lawyers. And the takeaway message that I summed up that talk with was AI may be able to provide sort of technical information, but it can never replace the humanity that a lawyer can provide to a client, because when our clients come to us, really in almost every circumstance, they're coming to us at a time of vulnerability, and we are counselors at law. And if we continue to remember our humanity and lean into that counseling role, we cannot be replaced by some machine that can't do that. And so I think the future of legal education is making sure that our students are really doing the thing that they came here that they wanted to do when they applied to law school, right? They wanted to be serving people. And as long as we keep that spark alive, I think that the profession will be continuing to support people and help people and serve people, because that's what we're about.
Well, thank you so much, Josh and Kendra Fershee, who are the Dean and Associate Dean for Academic Affairs, respectively, of Creighton University School of Law. I've enjoyed our conversation and appreciate your spending time with me.
Well, thanks for having us, Patty.
Thank you.
And if you enjoyed this conversation and would like to hear from other thought leaders in the Legal Academy, you can find additional episodes on Aspen Leading Edge's podcast page or on your favorite podcast channels. Thank you.